All right, so we are recording. As an introduction, we like to acknowledge that our mission at Vose Library is to advance learning, inspire curiosity, enrich lives, and promote community. With that in mind, let me introduce our guests. Cherry and Jerry is Isaac Cherry on percussion and Jerry Rabushka on piano. Based in St. Louis, the duo is also part of the larger Ragged Blade Band and has toured music of the Ragtime Era throughout a several state area. They have found this music is great for good times, brew pubs, wineries, markets, festivals, and more. They've appeared in the Big River Steampunk Festival in Hannibal, Missouri, the Oddities and Curiosities Expo in Chicago and Tulsa, the Ragbray Bicycle event in Iowa, and the St. Louis World's Fair in their hometown. A typical performance includes some well-known songs of the early 20th century, as well as breathing life back into some rarely played tunes. Without further ado, please help me welcome Cherry and Jerry with the Ragged Blade Band. Welcome.
Hey, how y'all doing tonight? I am Jerry Rabushka.
I'm Isaac Cherry.
And we are Cherry and Jerry. And we do thank you for spending some time with us. I guess, as you know, most musical hits, they're gone in a few weeks and another one comes and takes their place. We got some songs that have been popular for over 100 years or so, and we want to talk a little about what they are and why everybody still likes them.
That's right. Ragtime is a style of music whose heyday was over 100 years ago, but there are still some songs from that era that are still popular today. If a song with a shelf life of that, in some cases 120 years, there has to be a good reason for it. And we hope to give you a few words about the events and some of the people behind some of these songs.
First, we do want to thank Deborah for having us here tonight. She's been a pleasure to work with. And thank you to the Vose Library. And again, thank you for spending some time with us. We're going to have a good time. Hopefully you're going to have a good time too. And you'll hear some songs that you probably know and maybe a couple you don't. But we're going to take you first back to 1911. And what we got on tap?
We are going to do Alexander's Ragtime Band. We're going to tell you the story behind this song, which started in 1911. It was published in 1911, and it kept the old sound of ragtime alive a little bit longer, while the new styles were coming in vogue. Blues and jazz were on ragtime's heels. The genre was losing steam, but the success of Alexander's Ragtime Band made ragtime popular for several years more. Along with that, many music critics and historians feel that this is the song that launched American popular music. Composer Irving Berlin was born in Russia. His real name was Israel Beiglin. His family came to America when he was 5 years old, trying to escape religious persecution for being Jewish. He was taught self-taught piano and got involved in songwriting in 1907, always trying to score that next big hit. At first, there were objections to the Alexander's Ragtime Band. Producers said that the chorus was too long and the vocal range was way too wide. But thanks to a couple of artists that recorded it and sung the song, by the end of 1911, it was the song of the decade. And in one case, a vaudeville producer had 4 acts trying to play this song at the same time, actually 5 acts trying to play the song at the same time, and had to cut 4 of them. And in another situation, the Titanic actually was sinking, and survivors recall hearing Alexander's Ragtime Band played by musicians as they were boarding lifeboats. So we're going to play for you Alexander's Ragtime Band, the whole entire song.
1, 2, 3. Yay, thank you. Alexander's Ragtime Band by Irving Berlin. And it's a, yeah, be glad you're not on a sinking ship while this song is playing. So it was huge back in the day, and it sold 1.5 million copies of sheet music within a year and a half. And Berlin really, he cashed in on it quite a bit. He wrote like follow-up tunes to it. He had a parody called Alexander's Bagpipe Band. And somebody else wrote a tune called When Alexander Takes His Ragtime Band to France. And there was a movie even in the 30s called Alexander's Ragtime Band. Al Jolson sang it, Bing Crosby sang it, Ethel Merman, as you can imagine, sang it. Bessie Smith had a big hit with it in 1927. And speaking of, well, not really speaking of anybody, but gonna go dancing now back in 1913. And
Yes, this song is like considered basically one of like the first electric slides. This song is called "Ball in the Jack." This is familiar to some people, but not many outside of the ragtime era. Ball in the Jack came about thanks to a lot of the changes that were happening in society during the 1910s. Dancing was changing from a private affair to a more public affair, and a lot of clubs were starting to add dance floors into their clubs. So couples were starting to dance closer and closer to each other, and sometimes touching, and in some cases, some said dancing too close. Dance crazes came and went, and songs were written about these various dances, but Ballin' and Jack was a little bit different because it told you how to do the song's dance and its lyrics, one of the first of its kind. And so the song was written by Chris Smith, who was born in Charleston, South Carolina. He came up to New York around 1900, and by the time Ball in the Jacket came out, he had already had hit songs, hit sheet music out for about a decade. The lyrics were written by Jim Burris, who came from Tennessee and made his way to New York sometime around the 1890s. He and Smith had already had already written a lot of songs together, but it was this song's catchy tunes and standout lyrics that made this one a song that never went out of style. And it was the top song of 1913.
It totally was. Yeah, people were balling the jack. It was one of the biggest hits of the year. I was fortunate enough to actually correspond with Eve Burris, who is the granddaughter of Jim Burris, the lyricist, which I thought was kind of really cool. And a lot of times, especially these older tunes, the lyricist never gets his due. So she gave me a little short bio of Jim Burris. He was an African-American performer back in the day. And she says, in the early part of the 20th century, he created a career as a singer, dancer, lyricist, and actor. And he was a member of influential performance groups such as the Lafayette Theater Players in New York and the Black Patty Troubadours. And Black Patty was a African-American opera singer, and she brought a lot of folks around with her. He collaborated with some of the most famous performers of his day, including the incomparable Bert Williams. And you don't want to hear me sing it, but we're going to play you Ballin' the Jack by Chris Smith and Jim Burris. 1, 2, 3, 4. and the Jack, 1913 by Chris Smith and Jim Burris. So this song was recorded a lot over the last 100 years. It was recorded 150 or more times, and it's been in several movies. It was in For Me and My Gal in 1942, and Judy Garland and Gene Kelly did a version of it there. Then a movie called Haunted Honeymoon by Gilda Radner and Adam DeLuise. They had a little duo of Ball and the Jack. And if you really want to hear an interesting version, the Osmond Brothers in 1974 did a disco funk number based on this song. So yeah, it's been along quite a bit. So next we're going to take you back to 1900.
That's right. This is one of the more popular songs. People know this song is the Ice Cream Truck song, but
No, it's not.
It's actually called The Entertainer.
But we're not doing that one yet.
Oh, no?
No, we aren't.
Which one are we
We're
doing?
doing Certainly Living Around.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm
We'll
sorry.
get to that,
Oh,
though.
I'm certainly living a ragtime life. It's not a huge. This song is actually not a huge hit these days, but it was a solid part of the ragtime movement when it came out. It was written in 1900, right at the beginning of the ragtime era. The end of the ragtime era, some historians argue, is 1918. Famous ragtime player Max Morath revived it in the 1970s, and it's a part of many ragtime festivals today. The song is one of the first to take on the idea of ragtime taking over, much like disco fever. It was written by Robert Roberts, who came to New York from Cincinnati, and whose father was in show business as a clown. The lyrics are by Gene Jefferson, which was a pseudonym for Raymond Brown. We're going to play for you, I'm Certainly Living a Ragtime Life. Let's stick together.
1, 2, 3.
certainly living a ragtime life.
By a Ragtime Bob Roberts, as they called him. And he only wrote about 7 songs, but he was really well known as a recording artist. And a lot of famous singers, like on Broadway and vaudeville, wouldn't record because they thought if you heard a record, why are you going to come see them perform? So a whole new crew of recording artists cropped up to do the songs that they would sing, more or less. And Roberts recorded over 400 songs. He recorded Good Morning Carrie, which was a hit from Chris Smith, the guy who wrote Ball and the Jack. And he also sang a song called How Much Wood Would a Woodchuck Chuck If a Woodchuck Woodchuck Would? And he performed at the St. Louis World's Fair, which is literally a ride up the street from us. Here is a version of his song Ragtime Life, sung by G.H. Eliot in 1913.
It's a really, really cool song. This song is a really cool song. It's the first to come up with the idea of ragtime taking over.
Yep. So now we're going to go to the ice cream truck.
Okay, this song is called The Entertainer. That's right. Most people know this song by that melody alone. Scott Joplin actually wrote this song. He came from a very musical family. Unfortunately, his parents were both slaves. His father, Giles Joplin, was a laborer and former slave who played violin at plantation parties. And his mother, Florence Gibbons, was an avid singer and banjo player. Joplin himself was born in Texarkana in 1868, and eventually he moved to Sedalia, Missouri, where he got formal training in piano at the George Smith School. And then later he ended up going on to St. Louis, where he ended up writing The Entertainer in 1902. Even in its day, this song was recognized as a really big tune. In the June 7th, 1903 St. Louis Globe Democrat, contemporary black composer Monroe H. Rosenfield described it as, this is going to be a mouthful, as the best, as quote, the best and most euphonious of Joplin's compositions up to that time. It is a genuine work of a very original character, embracing various strands of an retentive character which set the foot in spontaneous action and leave an indelible imprint on the tympanum. Basically, it's a great song. So we're going to play for you The Entertainer, finally. It's one of my favorite songs.
Joplin's The Entertainer, and
Thank you.
thank you so much for being with us again. We're Cherry and Jerry. We are with the six-piece Ragged Blade Band, which has a sax, guitar, and two singers, and does a lot of these tunes with a bigger orchestration. And so Ragtime and Scott Joplin all kind of got forgotten for a while, and then there was a big ragtime revival, and the 70s kind of brought it back for good. A pianist named Joshua Rifkin, he was a classical player, and he made some albums of ragtime in a classical style, and they became a million-seller album, and The Entertainer was on it. Got nominated for a couple of Grammys. Scott Joplin was all about ragtime being considered a classical kind of music, so he would have been really happy about that. And then if you saw the movie The Sting, you'll remember this was the main theme from that, and a composer named Marvin Hamlish arranged it, and I think he won an Academy Award for the score. The movie was the best picture, and The Entertainer was #3 on the Hot 100, maybe 70-something years here after it was first composed. And here we are today, and when you hear this, the kids run out and get their ice cream bomb pops. And from here, we're going to go on to a colleague of Joplin's.
That's right. This James Scott. He's #2 when it comes to ragtime. #1, everyone knows Scott Joplin. #2 is James Scott. He's second to Joplin. He came out with his major hit that most people know it is called Frog Legs Rag. It was published in December of 1906. While it's not well known outside of the ragtime world, back in the day, like many of these other songs, it was a huge hit. James Scott, when he was visiting St. Louis, he was trying to advance his career around the time of the St. Louis 1904 World's Fair. And he came into the attention of Scott Joplin. Whether or not they knew each other, it's not quite clear. Historians debate on whether or not they had. But what we do know is that Scott Joplin pushed James Scott's music onto his publisher, John Stark. I know it's a little confusing. And John Stark ended up publishing up to 27 of James Scott's rags all the way up until 1922, when ragtime music was starting to fade out of style and blues and jazz was starting to come in. Well, anyways, this song, Frog Legs Rag, is the #2 seller in the John Stark catalog, second to Maple Leaf Rag by John Stark. By James Scott, sorry.
One more.
And, but Scott Joplin. And we're going to play Frog Legs Rag for you. James Scott is known for being a very technical ragtime, classical ragtime composer. So here we go. It's a lot of names. John.
I know, it's a lot of names. Ready? 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Legs Rag by
Thank
James
you.
Scott. And thank you again for being with us. And
Very much. Thank you all so much.
thank you. I've noticed just sheet music wise, the difficulty of ragtime actually says a lot for its popularity because sheet music before and after the ragtime era seems to be a lot easier, but people liked this music enough that they were really willing to learn how to play it. James Scott is from Missouri, spent his whole life living in Missouri, and he was born in a town called Neosho, which is the southwest part of the state. Then he lived in a city called Carthage. And if you all have those little precious moments figurines, that's where they're from, is Carthage. Which, I lost a tooth and I'm talking funny. But anyway, Carthage, Missouri. He got a band together of black musicians, because back in those days, bands were segregated mostly, but he did really well with it. And he also played organ and piano for silent movies. And he did this until they started talking, and he was living in Kansas City. And then he did some jazz and some blues, and he lived until 1938. And speaking of the song that beat him out in the start catalog, a Maple Leaf Rag.
That's right. Maple Leaf Rag was written by Scott Joplin, as we talked about earlier. It was written in 1899 as a tribute to the short-lived Maple Leaf Club in Sedalia, Missouri. Just a little sidebar, Sedalia, Missouri is still like the ragtime capital in a lot of ways. A lot of festivals and stuff happen there based on ragtime, still even to this day. But anyways, this song, Maple Leaf Rag, sold 400 copies its first year. And by 10 years later, it sold 500,000 pieces of sheet music, copies of sheet music. And eventually it sold 1 million copies of sheet music. Joplin soon lawyered up and made sure that he got a percentage off of each sale of sheet music at a time where for black or white composers, it was unheard of to get royalties of this kind. With him making that type of money, it allowed him to live very comfortably for the rest of his life. So we're going to play a sample of Maple Leaf Rag for you, but we're going to play a version by Wes Osmond, who is a banjo player. I'm going to make sure I had that right. I want to say
from about 1905 or 6, I believe.
Okay, let me turn this up. Song.
It is cool. And it's my solo song.
Yes, but I want to say one more thing about this song. This song also helped spark the demand for more and more ragtime, which stayed popular in America for the next 20 years. And I'm going to get out of here.
It did, yeah. It was considered the king of rags. It still is. So ragtime was not beloved of everybody. A lot of people thought it was not music for decent people. But nonetheless, it worked its way up to the President of the United States. It was Teddy Roosevelt at the time of this little story. A member of the Marine Band says that Roosevelt's daughter Alice came up to the band director, and she's all like, "Oh, Mr. Santelman, do play the Maple Leaf Rag for us." And Mr. Santelman, he's like, "The Maple Leaf Rag? Indeed, Miss Roosevelt. I've never heard of such a composition. And I'm sure it's not in our library." Well, Alice wasn't having it. Alice is all like, now, Mr. Santelman, don't say that. The band boys have played it for me time and again. And when Mr. Smith conducts it, they all seem to know it without the music. So I guess poor Mr. Santelman had to play some ragtime that night. But I'm going to play you a Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin, and he tried and tried and tried to replicate that success. Apparently, that is the first instrumental piece that did sell 1 million copies. And while he never managed to do that again, he obviously wrote some really wonderful pieces like The Entertainer, and he wrote an opera later in his life called Treemonisha, and he left us a lot of good stuff. So now, bonus tune. Like I said at the beginning, a lot of hits kind of come and go, and this is a hit of its time that our band plays occasionally, and I just sort of, everybody likes this song. And this is a different style of music. This is a piece by a lady named Charlotte Blake, and she was a pretty well-known composer back in a day when there were a lot of women writing music and a lot of men who were kind of like, really? But nonetheless, the women were very excellent songwriters, and Charlotte Blake was one of the best. She had a hit tune called The Harbor of Love, and it was sort of a love ballad. And I'm going to play you a verse from it. It's from 1911, 1912. It's Harbor of Love. I have no fear when storm clouds appear, because you are my harbor of love by Charlotte Blake. So we're gonna got a couple more tunes for you again, and if you like us, you can follow us on Facebook at Cherry and Jerry Music, and you can hear the band at raggedblade.com. And we're gonna go into a little bit of jazz and blues to finish out.
Can I make one comment about
You
that song?
may. All right.
So that's a really beautiful song he just got through from playing. There's on YouTube, if you look up Harbor of Love, there's different variations and covers of it. What is the gentleman's name who sings it?
There's a guy whose name is Walter Van Brunt, and he sings the whole song Harbor of Love. And
Very beautifully.
yeah,
Just wanted to add that in there.
it is. It's
a tearjerker.
He really lets it go. Yeah, very cool.
This song is one of the first jazz hits. This is Strutter's Ball. This is one of the more common songs that people know. It's a very fun song. Many music historians consider 1918, as I said previously, the end of the ragtime era. As new forms of music such as blues and jazz were starting to come into vogue, many composers weren't able to make the transition from ragtime over into the blues and jazz. But this musician who wrote this song, this composer, Shelton Brooks, was able to make that transition. He was actually born in Canada and got his bones playing ragtime music in the Detroit area. Eventually, he ended up moving on to Chicago, where he got involved in vaudeville, and occasionally someone who could put out a hit song every now and then. He got in vaudeville singing and performing mainly. In 1913, he wrote, "I Wonder Where My Easy Rider's Gone," which was sung by Mae West in She Done Him Wrong, the movie where she says, "Why don't you come up and see me sometime?"
And he cashed in on like Chris Smith did with Ball and the Jack. He wrote a piece called "Walkin' the Dog," which was the same kind of thing. It told you how to do a dance called "Walkin' the Dog." And then his most popular tune back in the day probably was called "The Strutter's Ball." And sheet music sales of this one hit about 3 million. It was recorded. It's been done. We're going to do it for you right now. "Strutter's Ball" by Shelton Brooks. 1, 2, 3. Strutter's Ball by Shelton Brooks.
Thank
And
you.
we are going to give you a little snippet of the old Dixieland Jazz Band doing this song in 1917. So that song was done by lots of folks: Ella Fitzgerald, Guy Lombardo, Hoagie Carmichael, Lawrence Welk, and you can YouTube this. Has a guy singing it in Italian. Again, we want to thank you. Want to thank Deborah and the Vose Library. We've had an awesome time. We got one more tune for you, and where
Yes,
we
we do.
going?
We're going to our hometown. This is one of our hometown songs. You hear everyone plays this song almost in every type of genre. And this is called St. Louis Blues. It's one of the most famous songs in American history, and the composer W.C. Handy, known as the father of the blues, combined many influences into it. So when you listen to this song, you'll hear a little bit of waltz, you'll hear a little bit of tango. One of the more famous lines from the song is, "That man's got a heart like a rock cast into the sea." It's something that he heard a heartbroken woman say over and over again in his time living in St. Louis when he was homeless. The way she said it always struck a chord with him. The last section of the song is inspired by a preacher's chant, where he's trying to get more money into the collections plate. And how's that part go, Jerry?
This. So get those dollars up. Anyway. And you'll hear this is the sheet music, the original sheet music that we play from. It starts off as a tango, and the point was that people knew tango, they didn't really know the blues, so he got them on the dance floor with the tango, and then he gave them a little bit of blues. And that way he sort of introduced them to a new style. And in fact, we're going to play you the Handy Band, a little piece of St. Louis blues, how he recorded it back in 1915, I believe. So a lot of folks have made a lot of hay with that song. Louis Armstrong recorded it. Who else on my little list here? Bessie Smith, Fats Waller, Ragged Blade Band even has recorded it. In fact, we're the only band that does the whole song. It goes 8 minutes, and that's without repeats. So anyway, we're going to play you a not quite that long version of the St. Louis Blues by W.C. Handy.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, everybody.
much.
Yay!
Thank you.
So it is so wonderful to see two individuals, two very talented individuals enjoying themselves.
Thank
It's
you.
clear you're happy people.
Thank you so much.
We've got a few things in the chat that I'll just relay. I don't see any questions, but those of you in the audience, if you have any questions for Cherry or Jerry, just please make sure you write them in there, or I'll ask you to unmute. We just have a few minutes here. But I have to say, Angie's with us, and she seems to be your biggest fan. She's got bravo, thank you, that's awesome. Oh, one of my favorites. And then she wrote, thank you so much for the gift you've given the Vose community this evening. Bravo and much applause and thanks to you. Loved every minute of your performance. I have a son who is especially gifted at ragtime. And if you have a chance, we do have a Mainer from Camden who was particularly gifted at composing, playing ragtime. His name was Glenn Jenks. He lived from 1947 to 2016. Best wishes to you and much appreciation for your talents.
Oh, wow. Thank
And
Thank you.
Dustin said local phenom Aaron Robinson did an arrangement of Scott Joplin's opera Tremonisha
Tremonisha.
that was premiered at the Rockport Opera House in the 90s. Aaron is also an accomplished ragtime piano performer. So Rockport is like maybe 20 minutes from where we are in Union.
Awesome.
And Anne said, thank you for sharing your fun music with us. You brightened my day.
So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank y'all so much.
So if anybody has a question they want to unmute and ask, I'll just wait a moment for that. I think perhaps our group was just interested in being entertained tonight.
We're so thankful that you guys hung out. Yeah. You can talk
Yeah, I was going to say if we're up on your YouTube and you have any comments or thoughts you want to share, I'm happy to comment back or whatever.
Jerry's very chatty.
I'm chatty.
He's very chummy.
That's great.
Enjoy. I honestly just started playing ragtime just to learn something different. And then one day I'm like, I could perform this. And it
Indeed.
Took a while, but yeah,
we're happy to
be doing this.
I like the history behind it.
Yes, and I was going to say, absolutely, the education along the way really makes it a standout. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're at 7:06, so I will say that this concludes our presentation for this evening, and all of us at Vose Library, thank you for attending our Zoom with Vose Wednesday series, and we hope that you'll help spread the word and also join us on Wednesday, April 14th, where we host a shared collaborative program among 7 area libraries with MOBA, the Museum of Bad Art. And they will present a night of fun, laughter, and, well, bad art. We hope to see you there. So good night, everyone. Be well and stay healthy.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.